probably one of the biggest ones is right violating a picture of a corpse. Okay. So I got a comment on TikTok from Mike Townfall. Could you compare the William corpse models to the corpse models on Midwich? Because to me they look kind of reused but never gave it a proper examination. I did reply. I play I play games on PS5 on console. So I don't have the tools to rip game assets out of a DVD, and they're not on Sketchfab or anything like that. I would guess because they're not character models, they're environmental assets. So I didn't know the best way to do a comparison, but I did go into DVD on Midwich, and I got some images. So I'm going to try a comparison with images with some context. Now, I need to say that I have not done anything game design related in probably about 10 years. And things have changed. I remember when the wireframe for Pyramid Head's helmet came out from the Silent Hill 2 remake, and people were losing their minds because it's a jumbled mess. 10 years ago, that wouldn't have been acceptable because the engines back then couldn't render something like that. Clearly, Unreal's advanced, other engines have advanced. Graphic cards for, PlayStations, Xboxes, PCs have all advanced, so I'm a bit behind. And, as hardware advances, sometimes workflow does too. And every company has their own workflow, but I will still try to do my best to take a guess at best if the Midwich corpses were used as like a base for William's body, which it's not too far-fetched to say it may have been. Behavior has been known to be lazy, and behavior, every 3-6 months they have to push out a new chapter, and they might have to rush and take shortcuts. Now, on that note, their design team again is probably one of the best parts of behavior. It's not hard to find a dedicated and experienced 3D modeler who can model a full human body in like an hour, 2 hours. I'll take a look. So it's been a while since I've been in Krita. I took the images from the game. I sent them into Canva and cropped and brightened them because, again, I play on console, so I can only raise the brightness so far. So the first thing I'm going to have to say is, because it's a human body, there are going to be certain things that are going to stand out that are similar. Right here, for instance, you see the crest of the hip. You see the crest of his hip. That's you're always going to see things that are familiar like that, or things that seem copied. Those aren't. It's just because it's a human body, and naturally they're going to have the hip crests in something that's like this withered. Now the first thing is that these are, let's see right here, the legs of these are actually attached, unlike Williams over here, which are like hanging on by a thread, which would make me think, yeah, so this is it looks like, because these are from 3 different areas of Midwich, that they made one and then they just copy pasted it, because let's be honest, in a live match, because this was with bots, you're not gonna like stop and stare at like some of the environmental stuff, because it'll get you killed by the killer. So they literally just modeled one of these and then copy pasted it. So from this one, it's got a straight, it's got a straight hip. As I mentioned, in William's hip is tilted sideways, or if you want, you can see how much of a tilt that is. easier to make a line. You can see how much of an actual tilt he has in his on his hip, whereas these are straight. You can see how you can see it. And then the second part is, as I said, the crest, that's just going to be an obvious thing that's going to stick out. The legs are attached. You can see how the legs are attached, opposed to Williams, which are hanging on by a thread. And then probably one of the biggest ones is right here. Violating a picture of a corpse. Okay. The back of his hip, whereas when I did the video on this, it's caved in and pulled up, and you can see the back of his hip bones where you can't hear, down to where you can actually see his little tailbone. You can see his little tailbone. And obviously you can't with these. This one's in a weird position, but I think it's because it's meant to be like in this weird like crucified position. And this one's the one that falls out of the locker, so it hits the ground with its legs like this, so it looks weird. And then of course you're gonna see the ribs. You see the back of the ribs here. Again, that's just human anatomy coming through. It's nothing particularly special to William or the corpses in Midwich. These actually have no faces, which is a common theme in Silent Hill, is for the monsters not to have faces. And of course, obviously, William does have a face. Now, as I mentioned in the video, his head is a separate asset. For some reason, when I pulled it into ZBrush, his body was one piece, and then for some reason his head was another tool. That might not mean anything, or it could just be the way ZBrush imported the FBX file. I can't say for sure. Or it could have, had to do something with like animation, since the axe grabs, the Moris, you see his head and you see his jaw move, so this might have also been why it was separate from the body. And then you see these big grooves, which I think is like a nod or a reference to Pyramid Head's knife. And then William doesn't have that same groove. That's a deep groove. William has, not the best picture. William has a natural, if we want to call what William is natural, but he has a natural divot in his chest. Because this is a clavicle. That's a clavicle. That's the right here. These are natural bones in the or right below your neck. And then you have the muscle here, here, here. Now, if you ever look at bodybuilders or anyone who's real muscular, normally you can see this because it bulges out so far. But normally, let's do a different color. Noxious green. Normally, they're like out here. I want to do a picture. But you can see it. In William's case, his chest has just withered. His chest has just withered to the point where the skin is so tight you can see kind of the muscle underneath. And you can see the ribs right here. This I think just withered out. It's kind of like holes, except for this one, which I'm pretty sure was a spring lock hole. Then the scar here, but there's not a big, too close. There's not a big, like bladed hole that you see right here. And of course, we already know William's missing his legs and his arms, so. And then the back, I wanted to bring up because this is like the biggest part of the endoskeleton and one of the few pieces of it that you actually see. It's not a piece that's laying, and I think I brought this up in the video too, it's not a piece that you see laying on top of the model, it's actually part of the model. So you can see right here, there's a point, there's a vertice there, there's a vertice there, there's a vertice there. It's hard to see. The vertice there, vertice there. You can see the edge here connecting. Let's do a different color. Back to obnoxious green. You can see the edge here, the edge here, the edge running across here. Now that's important because in animation and rigging and modeling, again, this is from like 10 years ago, but I think it probably still applies today. If you have a piece like this, you have a piece like his back, or the endoskeleton piece, this will cause you some issues in rigging and weight painting and animation. If you just slap this big old piece onto his back, because if there's any geometry underneath it and you go to weight paint the body to the rig, and you miss whatever geometry is underneath this, you're gonna run into a lot of problems, because then whatever geometry is underneath this part doesn't get attached to the rig. So when he moves, this part will move, the geometry underneath it won't, and then that's when you get like weird vertices and faces like flying out of a body, because they're not attached to the rig like everything else, which is why when they modeled this, you can see little vertices here. It was probably just an extrusion off the model, which means they essentially likely did the outline, grabbed the faces, and extruded it up, so it's all just one piece. You don't have two pieces here. And I saw that in ZBrush where it was one subtool, it wasn't two. So, alright, is William's body just a corpse from Midwich? I don't think so. They could have used one like as a base template and then built off it. I don't think they did, because you would have to change so much. You'd have to change the head, you would have to change the physical model for this, you'd have to change the physical model back here, you'd have to change the model's legs, you would have to change the model here, and I think it was just too much. It would have been way too much work. And that's also not including things like the UVs, the displacement maps, the texture maps, the normal maps, having to redo probably a majority of the UVs, and then having to change the polys on the back in order to pull this up. I'm almost certain that William was made from scratch. And on top of that, they likely had to go through a process with Scott. So they would show him designs, they would show him like drawn images first, get his feedback, change it, get his feedback until he was happy with it. And then they probably started the model and made sure to keep him updated on like the process. So I think overall, no, I don't think these are reused for Springtrap. So I hope that helps and that answers that question.